This is the Sick'em Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Online at alansamuelsdcj.com. The Sick'em Podcast is a production of Baylor Athletics. Now, here are your hosts, Brooke Bednarz and the voice of the Bears, John Morris.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Sick'em Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. Glad you're with us this week. John Morris, Brooke Bednarz, and Brooke, let's take a stroll down memory lane. How about that? Just picture it, green and gold, memory lane, Baylor Athletics. Let's go back. How about going back 40 years? Now, I know for someone of your age, Brooke, that's not easy to do.
I'm doing some research.
Okay, yes. But our two guests will help guide us down that path. Let's look at the Baylor football season of 1980, Southwest Conference Championship season for the Bears, and we're going to visit with two of the key members of that team. Quarterback Jay Jeffrey is with us, and running back Walter Abercrombie is with us. And guys, welcome. This will be a fun trip down memory lane.
Absolutely, it's an honor to be here.
Looking forward to it.
Guys, that's great. When I say 40 years, does that seem possible?
No.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. I mean, I'm just shocked, sometimes when I'm reminded how long ago it was, 40 years ago when we came to Baylor and those older players would come around and would congratulate us after the game or something. We'd see those old lettermen who played, back in the 50s. It's kind of like that. We always looked at them as old guys. Old guys.
Oh, no.
And so that's kind of gives you a little bit of window to the way the current players look at us, I guess.
Absolutely.
Well, it's fun to reminisce about that season, one of the greatest seasons in Baylor football history. So, again, we'll do that. And, Brooke, as a little context, I was in school at the same time with these guys. Oh. I would have been in the class of 81, but I got out in December of 80. So I was right there. I was editing tape for the Grant Taft Show in 1980. So this is special for me. And these are two of the great representatives of Baylor athletics, Baylor football, and that 1980 Baylor team.
Well, I'm so excited to hear you guys, your thoughts on, what it was like. I want you to walk me back through some of those key victories that, sparked that championship season and just what it was like to play with each other. And now what you're doing in life and reflecting back, and I want to hear all about it.
How about let's start before 1980. The 79 team was a good team. You guys were both on that team and went to the Peach Bowl, beat Clemson pretty handily in the Peach Bowl to end the 79 season. I've always thought that was a real springboard to 1980. Jay, how do you remember that?
Yeah, it definitely was. An interesting point is I was actually ineligible that year because I transferred from Missouri University. I played my first 2 years at Missouri University in Columbia, and then transferred. So that year I was ineligible. I was a scout team quarterback.
So that was Mike Brannon who was quarterback then.
And
okay.
Mickey Elam.
And Mickey Elam, okay.
They kind of split time.
Gotcha.
That year, yeah.
All right. Walter, how do you remember 79 ending that year with a Peach Bowl win over Clemson?
Well, I remember there being just a lot of talent on that team. We didn't reach our potential, but I just remember there, guys like Andrew Mellentry and Gary Don Johnson and Frank Pollard, and those guys were so talented, and I just remember thinking, man, how in the world did we not win more games and go to maybe a bigger bowl? But you're exactly right. It was those guys who were the products of the 1974 championship team recruiting to Baylor. And then they became players, really great contributors to our football team, and then here, they kind of set the stage, so to speak. All we needed was a good quarterback for the next season, and
here he is.
This guy comes along, and Brandon. Not anything against Brandon. Brandon was a fine quarterback, but we lost Mickey Elam, and so we needed a guy to step in. And Jay brought unique talent to the table. He was a great passer. He's a tremendous mind for football, but he could also run. And that's what a lot of teams probably didn't expect that from him, but he ate them alive. And so we were very fortunate the very next year to go on and win the championship.
Jay, I was doing some research, and I found this old article where you talked about, the decision to transfer to Baylor, but you had to have a conversation with Coach first, and what he told you whenever you said, can I come to Baylor? Can you kind of walk us through that conversation and how you went from what he had said to the starter of that 1980 team?
Yeah, I can, and that's one of the reasons why I love Grant Taft so much, because he is a man of his word. He gives his word, and that means something in this life today. But when I was going to transfer, I'd been the backup quarterback for 2 years and felt like I should have been the starter both years at Missouri University. And so when I was considering transferring, I was looking at the different schools, and Baylor had recruited me heavily out of high school. And so Coach Taft called me. My brother Neil reached out to him, and then Coach Taft called me. And when Coach Taft called me, he said, Jay, well, we'd like you to transfer. And, there are certain rules. He couldn't really recruit me, but he could just give me information. And he said, Jay, when you walk on campus, you're going to be our 6th or 7th quarterback. And my response was, Coach, that doesn't bother me at all. So what I want from you is when I win the job, that you give me the job, because I've won it here twice, and they didn't give it to me. So all I want is when I win the job, that you're going to give me the job. And he never forgot it. And so when I came in, I had full intention of being the guy, and it worked out great.
Wow. That's a great story. How did you not come to Baylor originally? I mean, your dad played here, Neil played here. I mean, you had Baylor written all over you, but you went to Missouri.
I did, and I was recruited here. I played baseball and football and basketball also in high school, but was heavily recruited in all 3 sports, but especially baseball and football. And Baylor didn't really recruit me too much in baseball. But the other thing that came into that is they had recruited a kid named Sammy Bickham, which had gotten a lot of publicity that he was this All-American and blah, blah, blah. So I'm a senior in high school, and I'm seeing him being promoted on national TV, even though he wasn't even playing much. And so, you put all that together, and it just didn't seem like they really wanted me the way I felt like. And Missouri was just everybody in the Big 8. Back then it was the Big 8 in the Southwest Conference. Right. So that was the decision.
Interesting. Well, you got here. That's the
I was
important
about to say,
thing.
that's all that matters.
That was the most important thing.
Yep,
for sure.
You got here, led Baylor to the Southwest Conference Championship, and for a while there, for a long while, we didn't win a conference championship unless it was a Jeffrey at
I was
quarterback.
about to say, you followed in your brother's footsteps. It took you a while. You took a detour,
I did,
but
detour.
You got here.
Yep.
That 80 season, what do you guys remember about spring of 80, going through spring work? Did you go through spring, Jay, or were you playing baseball?
No, well, I did both.
Both, okay.
That spring, and so I'd go to baseball or go to football practice. Then we had a game. I'd go over and try to play in the games. I did that all spring. But I was there
impressive.
every single practice.
Wow.
And it was a intense offense versus defense battle. And, I mean, there was fights at every practice.
Oh, really?
It was a serious, intense thing. I mean, we had fights between the coaches on the offense and the defense. And you imagine Corky going after somebody.
Oh, man.
So,
Walter, so it was pretty intense spring. I mean, high expectations, I'm guessing, going into 80.
I think there was. I think we all sort of felt like we could build off of the Peach Bowl victory. We beat a pretty good team there. It was Clemson. And so there was a lot of excitement and anticipation going into the 80 season. We were fortunate that we didn't have a lot of injuries. We were healthy. And here you got some great players like Singletary going to come up to be his his senior year. Radar Holt. I mean, you had these tremendous players who had all the experience and had performed pretty well the previous year. And then this was the year we were going to put it all together. And I don't know if you remember this, Jay, but with all the anticipation coming into the 1980 season, I think Coach Taft walked into one of our meetings and said they were going to close our dining hall or something. And that was where all the athletes were eating. And so that could have been a huge distraction for us, but the way Coach handled it and the way he talked to us about it, that let nobody determine your destiny and your path for you. You focus on what you're supposed to focus on, and you commit yourself to that, no matter what it is, and you go after it. And that's exactly what we did.
Wow.
We focused. We didn't let the little distraction of not having a dining hall to go to eat our own dining hall. So that's what happened. We went out, and because we have that little chip on our shoulder, it made a difference during the season.
One of the things, too, is you mentioned it a little bit, is people were thinking that we came out of nowhere. And when you think about it, we had the best linebacker in the country. We had the best offensive lineman in the country. We had the best free safety in the country. We had the best running back in the country. I mean, we had studs all over the place. We just needed to put it all together and have the belief that this was going to really happen. And I'm telling you, when we went into that season, it was, we're going to make this happen. And there was never any doubt on the team at all.
The Black is back. It's the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels. Get special holiday deals on the truck of your dreams, like a brand new Ram Lone Star Crew Cab with special factory discounts and financing, or grab hold of the Swiss Army knife of SUVs, Jeep Gladiator, and head for holiday adventure. The Black is back. The Black Friday sales event from Allen Samuels, your friend in the car business.
Whether on the field or cheering from home, Du Bois Furniture is proud to support the Baylor Bears. If your bear cave needs updating, Du Bois Furniture is here to help. With over 59 years of our family serving yours, let our experienced sales team help you find exactly what you want. We specialize in custom upholstery, stunning dining rooms, elegant bedrooms, gorgeous leather, and top quality mattresses. Come see us in Waco and Temple or visit us online at DuBoisFurniture.com. Du Bois Furniture, where beautiful homes happen.
Now, back to the Sikkim Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat.
We're visiting with former quarterback Jay Jeffrey, former running back Walter Abercrombie, celebrating the 40th anniversary of the 1980 Southwest Conference Championship football team for the Baylor Bears. John, when I looked at this record going into the beginning of this 1980 season, I noticed that they won the first 7 games because I, of course, was not there for this season, but I've enjoyed doing all the research for this. And last year, I got to be a part of the beginning of a 9-0 season, so I know what that feels like. I got to experience it with Baylor, the excitement of win after win after win. But I want to hear from you two what that was like. It was kind of expected, like you mentioned, chip on your shoulder, but you guys started with a big step forward with a lot of momentum, and you just kept plowing through those first 7 games. So what do you think the key was to that? And when you mentioned, finally getting all those pieces to click, Jay, what was the key to doing that?
Yeah, well, we played well early and just blew up Lamar and blew up West Texas State and just kind of went on a roll.
She's trying to work her way around to the game we lost.
No, I purposely avoided that game. I wasn't even. It's not marked on the paper.
I'm sorry I interrupted you. I'm just teasing.
I heard her say 7-0. That's what I heard.
7-0.
I don't remember that. Did we lose one? But going into the SMU game, we were not favored. We were ranked in the top 10, but they were higher. They had an All-American quarterback in Mike Ford. Of course, they had Dickerson and James, who were the 3rd and 4th best running back in the Southwest Conference, because Gentry and Abercrombie were the first 2. But that was a big game, and that was the game that turned it around, and we went behind 21-0 early in that game, and then made a great comeback to actually win that game 32-28. And that kind of made us realize how good we were, and the fact that we could beat anybody at any time. So at that point, we were expecting us to just keep getting better. And everybody believed in everybody. The offense believed in the defense believed in the offense, and it was a great season.
Walter, that SMU game, I'm sure there was a motivational halftime speech to get you guys to come back from that. Is there anything about that stands out?
Well, I'm trying to think. There were several motivational halftimes during that season, but was that wasn't?
It was not the Worm.
It was not the Worm.
Was not the Worm.
Not the Worm, yeah.
It was at Kyle Woods.
Well, Kyle Woods.
No, that was later.
That was against Arkansas.
Right.
That was before.
Right.
That was in the pregame before Arkansas.
My bad. The years run together, and but I don't know what prompted us to come back. I know we had some great play by our quarterback, and he was able to bring us back. But the thing that I remember about SMU, because there was such competition between in the backfields, and of course I was a running back along with with Dennis Gentry, and they had all of they had all these big recruited guys, with Eric Dixon and Craig James, and so even though Jay has been kind of nice, giving us the accolades, but those two guys were really nationally known, and they were big dogs. And I was proud that Dennis and I, and by the way, Dennis Gentry was a small running back. He wasn't very big. He probably weighed 175, 80 pounds. But I mean, on the field, he played like a giant. And of course, he went on to play 11 or 12 years in the NFL. But a lot of folks totally underestimated him. He was probably pound for pound the best offensive player that we had, and so he had a great year that year, and I enjoyed running with him, and I enjoyed getting to run because he was a tremendous blocker. He's a little guy, was fast, quick, great runner, but also a devastating blocker. And Dennis Gentry, I would say, probably made Walter Abercrombie because of his ability to block and open holes for me.
That's one of the things that people don't realize about our great running backs is they were both unbelievable blockers. As we would run the option the other way, you'd have the trailing back who was the pitch man, and the lead back was the blocker. And whoever they were blocking was going down every time. Against SMU, we were down 21-0. Our quarterback at the time threw an interception to make the score 21-0 SMU. And as we went back out for the next possession, it's 21-0 now. We're behind, and the second quarter just started. And we get the ball, and it's on like our own 26-yard line. It's 4th and 1 on our own 26-yard line, and we go for it.
Wow.
And the game's going to be over at that point. Of course, Walter gets it, and the key to that part is that we narrowed it to 21-14 at half. And that was the part that all of a sudden we knew. And then they made it 28-14, and then we dominated the game after that. So,
do I remember this right? Do you remember a conversation with Coach Taft?
I do,
okay.
very vividly.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, when I came to the sideline, it was 21-0, and I always tell the story that the defensive back made a mistake, made a bad read because our receiver was running wide open, but I threw the short route, and Simmons intercepted and ran it back for a touchdown. And I came to the sideline, and I went to Coach Taft and just said, "Are you going to take me out?" And Coach Taft does like he always does. And Coach and I have different variations of the stories, but he's not here right now, so I'm going to tell mine. But, he said, "Jay, well, what do you think I should do?" Which is very much Coach Taft, to turn it back on you. And I said, "Well, if you take me out, there's nothing I can do. You leave me in, we'll win this game."
Wow.
And he said, "Jay, I believe that you believe that." That's what he said. And then he turned and started to walk away, and he turned around and said, "Jay," he said, "you're my quarterback. Let's go win this thing."
Wow. How great is that? That is great. And you did. I mean, it's one of the big comebacks in Baylor history. Down 21-0, first quarter, and win at 32-28 over a good SMU team. A good SMU team. Mike Ford, their quarterback.
Yep.
So that gets you to 5-0 on the year. A&M is next. Played in a monsoon at Texas A&M. Can y'all describe how hard it was raining for that game, Walter?
Well, it was. That game was like a blur to me because I think we went into the game, Jay, with prepared to pass the ball.
We were.
We were going to pass the ball
because we knew they were going to try to stop us.
Try to stop the run, and I don't think we got away from. I think we threw the ball in that weather. There was I don't know if it was a screen pass. Mm-hmm. Jay, you threw to me on the side. And I remember, losing the ball when it left your hand because of the rain, and then seeing it right before it hit me in the face. And I reached up and grabbed it, and I saw these two A&M guys coming just about to kill me. And I ducked and closed my eyes, and I think they slipped or something. But I got past them some kind of way and made it to the end zone. But no, it was a lot of rain. And it was difficult to see, difficult to hear it.
When the game started, you literally could not see the secondary. And so when we came up to the line, and one play was third, and I'm taking the snap because the ball would just go straight through your hands. It was raining so hard, and I couldn't keep it dry. So I'm literally catching the ball in my belly, and we come up in this 3rd and 8 or whatever, and we're breaking the line, and I'm grab Ray Cockrell, our tight end, and say, Raymond, I'm coming to you on the curl because I can't see anything else.
Pass
so
that.
I drop.
You are it.
I drop straight back and act like I'm looking over here and turn back and hit Raymond. And then as the first quarter came to a close, the rain started stopping. And it was really, really wet. But I actually threw 3 touchdown passes in the second quarter, and none of my passes were past the line of scrimmage. So I did the right thing. I threw it to Walter, and he went and scored.
There you go. Good call.
Threw it to where you can see.
And let's make the point on this Baylor podcast that Walter, in your 4 years here, and Jay, in your 2 years here, never lost to Texas A&M. And
that's right.
That was one of them, 46-7.
Yeah, that was a beat down.
That was 46-7. Beat TCU the next week. You got a non-conference game in the middle of your conference schedule, San Jose State, which
notice I am not the one bringing this up.
We're going to skim right over this, but it just has disaster written on it. You know, you got all this momentum. You're playing conference games. All of a sudden, you got a team that you never see. It's a non-conference game. What do you remember about the week leading up to San Jose State?
I've tried to block that game out of my mind so many years.
Fair enough.
I don't remember much about that game, but I remember thinking, I can't believe we just lost to this team.
Yeah.
You know, the interesting thing in the first half is that we just dominated the game, and we just didn't score. And, you know, that's like you always say, you know, when you have momentum, you just need to put it away and be done with it. And right before the half, they ran through a sideline, and Mike Singletary was cutting over to the flat, and the ball kind of hit him in the back of the helmet and popped up, and their guy caught it and ran for a touchdown. And that kind of turned, and the second half was just a nightmare. Just one of those games that just nothing went right.
Yeah.
And,
it was Gerald Wilhite, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Gerald Wilhite
Running
with
back.
San Jose State.
Yeah.
All right, well, but out of that, and that's enough. That's enough time about San Jose State.
Turn in the page.
That's right.
Out of that, an amazing story and comeback for this team. We'll talk about that after a short break. You're listening to the Sikkim Podcast. We'll be back with Jay Jeffrey and Walter Abercrombie, members of the 1980 Southwest Conference Championship football team here at Baylor. We'll be right back.
If you need a trailer, Flat Rock Trailers has got you covered. From light-duty single-axle utility trailers to the Big Tex tandem duals. We also carry a full line of enclosed cargo trailers. Need a motorcycle trailer? We've got them. Need a dump trailer? We've got the largest selection in the state. Oilfield trailers? We carry a full line of Big Tex trailers to handle all your needs. Trailer repairs? We repair all makes and models. We'll even rent you a trailer if you need to use one for a day. Flat Rock Trailers, your #1 source for all your trailer needs. Find us at flatrocktrailers.com.
TNG can, and here's why. To say my wife and I have a lot to clean is an understatement. So we go to TNG Chemical, where the pros know what cleaning solutions to use and give us detailed instructions on exactly how to use them. We never got that kind of advice from any other stores. And the prices at TNG are great. From general household cleaners to odor control solutions for our pets. We go to TNG Chemical and Supply. That's why. TNG Chemical and Supply. That's why.
You're listening to the Sikkim Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. Here again are Brooke Bednarz and John Morris.
Welcome back as we continue on the Sikkim Podcast, presented by Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. On the web at AllenSamuelsDCJ.com, your friend in the car business. We are strolling down memory lane on our podcast this week with Jay Jeffrey and Walter Abercrombie, members of the 1980 Baylor Southwest Conference Championship football team. We are past San Jose State. We are to Arkansas. That game that year, was that homecoming?
It was.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's homecoming. And for you guys to come back, that word we'll hear again, to come back like you did after the loss to San Jose State. Jay, walk us through the motivation to play well, and you guys played great that day.
Yeah, we did. Well, it was a nightmarish week because we just knew we should have obliterated. It was one of those deals you always say, I'd make that play 99 out of 100 times. We'd beat them 99 out of 100 times, but that didn't matter. We lost. So now we got to figure out how to win the conference and how to put ourselves in a position to still win a national championship. And before the game, as we're getting ready to go out, it was Kyle Woods had been hurt before the season started in 1979, and a lot of people know the story of Kyle and the damage to his spine and his neck, and was paralyzed. And our team, and Walter was key, and Radar Holt and a bunch of other guys in helping Kyle through the rest of his life. But before that game, and I don't know, Walt, if you want me to tell that the pep talk that he gave us before the game. Or
you might have a few more details that I've forgotten.
Well,
if you remember it.
We're getting ready to go out, and literally it's right before, which is very odd for somebody to come and talk to the team other than the coach. Right, so we go out, and as we go out pregame, and you do the stuff, then you come back in. And generally at that, it's just the coach says one last thing. You're ready to go. We go, and we come back in the locker room, and Kyle Woods is sitting in his chair right before the game is getting ready to start. And we go in the locker room, and Kyle is sitting in his brother's behind him, Daryl, and Kyle is just talking. He says, I had a grandmother raise me, and as I was going, she would always say, in life, you take a setback and you make it a comeback. And he said, that's what I want y'all to do. And then Kyle stood up and actually took a step, the only step he ever took in his life. And so when he did that, the team went nuts. We went out, and we blew Arkansas off the map. We got the ball, and we were taking these wide splits, like, say, 18-inch, 2-foot splits, and they were going with us. And so the lineman said, what do we do? I said, let's just keep going wider. We just kept going because the wider they go, they run their tackles outside our tackle. The wider they go, there's just more room. The Walter and Dennis are diving, and we are getting 12, 15 yards a pop.
Wow.
And we just take it down and score. And I think it was 45 to something, and it wasn't that close.
42 to 15.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was, but that was a true story and a true emotional. I don't know, there was a dry eye in the place, and we ran out on that field. It was right before the game. Yeah, we ran out on the field.
We were 10 feet off the ground, but yeah, that story. I remember that. Kyle talking about his grandmother, and of course we're all listening to him because we feel awful. This injury happened to him. He's in this world. He was one of us, and he's looking at the probability of never walking again. And so as he's telling this story, the poise he had while he was telling that story, and it was so appropriate, for that situation. He said, guys, it's like my grandmother used to say, you take a setback and you turn it into a comeback. And those words resonated with us. And when he stood up, he sort of illustrated exactly what he was talking about. And there was that bit of hope that Kyle could walk again when he took that step, as Jay talked about. And so that was just the spark we needed. And we went out, and he said it was just, we were, like I said, 10 feet off the ground. Yeah. Everything clicked. Everything went the right way. And, Coach Lou Holtz, I'll never forget him. Mm-hmm. He didn't know what hit him.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's an amazing story. And you guys, as a sidebar, y'all stayed close with Kyle through the years, through the rest of his life. Radar kind of led the charge, but everybody did. He was a real central figure for all those teams. Weren't they 79 and then 80?
Yes.
Just really binding you guys together.
He really was a very influential guy, and one of the reasons why the B Association chose him to be a Wall of Honor recipient, just because of the impact that he had on so many lives.
Well, and it says a lot also. We always talk about how football is more than just a game, and it truly sets you up for life. And that's exactly, hearing the story back, that's exactly what Kyle did for you guys. Is he, right, y'all were in the thick of it. It could have, been a downward spiral from then. But instead, he kind of pointed out that, hey, there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world, and if I can take a setback and turn it into a comeback, then you guys can do that with this game. So to get to hear that story, I can only imagine being there. But that's super special.
It's hard to not be emotional just when I was telling it here.
Yeah.
So, oh, yeah. This many years later. Amazing. 42-15 was the final. Like you said, Arkansas didn't know what hit them. Got to go on the road the next week. Always that tricky late-season game against Rice. RA Day when the game was in Waco, but this one was at Rice Stadium. And if I remember right, you guys would have clinched the conference championship with a win over Rice. And typically it was a tight, close game.
It was. The first we played, Walter had been injured the week before, and I don't remember what it was, a hip or something, and he hadn't practiced a lot. He was practicing so he could play. And the very first play from scrimmage, he ran 79 yards and got to the 1 yard line. And
we want to talk about that.
Why didn't make it? He comes in the huddle, and we are ripping him about, really? Really? He got caught on the one? So we run a play, and they stop him. Of course, he's exhausted. Of course, I'm audibling. We had our goal line offense, and Taft would just signal to me, and I would call the play. So I said, Walter, you're getting it, because I wanted him to score. He scores, and we go second down, he doesn't score, and third down, he doesn't score. and then we're in the huddle, and this is absolutely true. In the huddle, our guys, and I say, well, we probably ought to do something else. And I said, that ain't happening. Walt, you're getting the ball. And when we broke the huddle, our offensive linemen are laughing. Our whole team is going to the line and laughing. And Rice has got to be, what is wrong with you guys?
Why are they doing it again?
But Walter went in, dove in, and we actually played pretty well that game. But Rice had a great game plan. What they weren't going to do, we were in the lead option. They weren't going to allow Walter and Dennis to hurt us with the big gain. And so what they would do is send the defensive end out and make me carry the ball. And they had a guy named Michael Downs, who was all-pro for the Cowboys, was their strong safety. And so the defensive end would go up. Well, I'd have to turn it up, and he would just come and hit me. And he'd hit me, and, I'm picking up 5-7 yards a time, but getting the fourth quarter, I don't want any more of that 5-7 yards. I finished the day with like 97 yards. Dennis had 120, and Walter had something. But the fourth quarter, I finally told the guys, I don't care what the read is. I'm pitching the ball. So you either need to outrun them, knock them over, or something. And but we still played pretty well. And it's one of those games that everybody said we took it for granted because it was 14-7, or it wasn't a very
16-6.
16-6. It wasn't a very big score, but we did dominate the game. And we controlled the ball. I mean, what you said, we had 3 people almost rush for 100 yards, so we dominated the game, but we just didn't score.
Yeah.
So,
and just rewind a little bit back to. For a little redemption, that 79-yard run that I made, Jay mentioned him. The guy that caught me on the 1 yard line was a guy named Michael Downs.
Okay.
And you may not remember this, but Michael Downs was like an All-American or All-Conference hurdler.
Sure.
He was a great track guy.
That's what it was.
That's what it was.
No, he's right. He is right about that. That's good.
But,
good addendum there, Walter. That's good.
just for the record, I mean,
but I am telling you,
little side note.
Asterisk.
I am telling you, he was hearing it in the huddle. Really,
We
Walt?
all
really?
had to run down there. Okay, fine.
That's great. 16-6 win over Rice. You clinch the Southwest Conference Championship. Still one game left, and it's Texas to close the regular season. And there's no way you guys are going to sit back and enjoy the championship. I mean, you want to finish it out in style.
And it was a nasty day. It was cold and rainy and all of that, but we really did. It was another game. They kind of stopped us the first couple possessions, but we pretty much wore them out. And we weren't scoring, and then we were saving a play, a trap play for Dennis as they were coming up field because their defensive tackles were so strong. Texas was so good. They literally, everybody makes it complicated. They didn't. They lined up with 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers, and did the same thing and played man-to-man outside. They did that every play because they were so good. They had, Kenneth Sims was the first person drafted next year. Yeah,
right.
Number 1 to New England. But so they were studs everywhere. Well, they would come upfield so fast, and finally John O'Hara called the play in. And Buzzy, or Nelson, our center, was telling them, because Ray Cockrell and Sam Houston would – run the plays in. They'd go back and forth and play, and Buzzy kept grabbing him saying, tell O'Hara to call the trap. And finally he did, and when he did, it just busted right through the middle, and they didn't have a chance catching Dennis. He was gone. And But we dominated. There's another game we dominated. But I tell you what, we were dominating, and then it was 7-7, and I think they were driving down the field to score, and I don't remember, Doak or somebody jumped up Tippett, and Cedric intercepted the ball on the 1 or 2 yard line.
Oh, wow.
And then we took that and went down and scored.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a good game, but we dominated. 16 or whatever it was, but we dominated the game.
Well, I don't want to correct you.
No, go ahead.
But it's actually good news for you guys. They didn't score. It was a shutout.
It was a shutout.
Yeah, it was a solid shutout that,
they
held
were close
with
to
Texas
scoring
for
on
a
that
while.
play.
Yeah.
But you shut them out, and that for Texas was their last shutout for a long time, like 25 years or so, I think, after that.
Yeah, so they were going to tie the game at that point. That's what
That's
it
it,
was.
7-0. It was 7-0 at that point.
Yeah, and of course our defense was dominant, and as we're sitting here talking about it, and because Walter and I are both offensive players, but when you look at our linebacking crew, the best in the country, I mean, we had 4 of the best linebackers, and only 3 of them could play.
Yeah.
And so when you had Lester Ward and Steve Ronaldo, who's an amazing story, being deaf, and then Doak Field, who was all-conference 3 years, then Mike Singletary, who was All-American for 3 years.
Right.
And so it's amazing the number of great players that we had.
Great players
on defense.
And then in the backfield, because we had Thomas Earl, we had Cedric Mack, as we talked about, and then also Van McElroy, who was an All-American, and so and then you think about the number of athletes that went on to the league from that team. It had to be close to a record of pro players, but
not only the guys that played, the guys that were on the bench.
Yeah.
That year, there were so many couldn't get on the field.
That's right.
They were so good. So
well, here's some of the honors out of that team. These guys were consensus All Southwest Conference.
9 of them.
9 players on your
Baylor
team.
record.
Consensus All Southwest Conference. Your entire backfield, J.U., Walter U., and Dennis, all Southwest Conference. Dickerson and James, I think, may have been second team. Right. But you guys were first team all conference. Frank Ditta in the offensive line was consensus all conference. And then on the defensive side, somebody named Singletary was all conference.
Somebody.
Charles Benson, Joe Campbell, Doak Field, and Van McElroy. Yeah. All those guys were first team consensus all Southwest Conference. That's amazing.
It is amazing. Charlie Benson's another one that doesn't get mentioned, but he was a dominant player. Those poor quarterbacks that were running against him didn't have a chance because he would trick them and do stuff, and he was an amazing talent. But
not saying a lot coming from you in practice, and if they were all like that you were talking about, competitive, then you definitely know.
It was an amazing group of guys for sure.
It really was.
Yeah.
It really was. And we talk about the great defense and all those tremendous players, but probably the most underrated group on the field was our offensive line.
Absolutely.
And I mean, for us to lead the conference in rushing that year, and for Dennis and I to have and Jay to have the years that we had running the ball and so forth, you had to have an aggressive offensive line and guys that were good fundamentally at what they did, because you can't have a good rushing attack unless you're good fundamentally. You have to be good fundamentally with your blocks and being able to sustain those blocks. And Mark Addix and Buzzy Nelson.
Yeah.
I mean, think about those guys.
Randy
who don't
Grimes,
get a lot of,
who went on to play in the NFL for 10 years,
right.
Couldn't even get on the field.
Yeah.
He and Buzzy kind of alternated, but Buzzy was so good at what he did. But Mark Addix actually got hurt when Mark graduated from Baylor. He was the highest paid lineman in professional football history. Went out to the LA Express with Steve Young. But he got hurt in the first game. So our offensive line was dominant, and we lost our best offensive lineman in the first game against Lamar. And so he was out that whole year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, Mark Kirshner and Eddie Gregory and
right.
Bobby Glass and all those guys, of course, Ray Cockrell, Sam Houston, our offensive line. And then our receivers, too. I mean, Mike Fisher and Radar Holt and Robert Mitchell. We had some fantastic receivers.
Fantastic receivers, man.
What
Gerald McNeil.
Gerald McNeil, young.
Bruce Davis. Anyway.
What a team. What a
Threats
team.
everywhere.
Well, let's go bowling. We'll take a break, and we'll talk about that and have more when we come back. You're tuned into the Sikkim Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics, and we'll be right back.
The Black is back. It's the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels. Get special holiday deals on the truck of your dreams, like a brand new Ram Lone Star Crew Cab with special factory discounts and financing, or grab hold of the Swiss Army knife of SUVs, Jeep Gladiator, and head for holiday adventure. The Black is back. The Black Friday sales event from Allen Samuels, your friend in the car business.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
This is the Sikkim Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
We are back with Jay Jeffrey, Walter Abercrombie, members of the 1980 Baylor Southwest Conference Football Championship team. 40 years it has been since that year. You guys won the Southwest Conference by a record 3 games, finished undefeated 8-0 in conference play. On to the Cotton Bowl, and who's waiting there but Bear Bryant in Alabama. And it was like, I mean, I can remember the bumper stickers, I think, or the trib said, last person out of town, turn off the lights, because it was a migration to the Cotton Bowl, wasn't it, on New Year's Day?
Man, it was. It was. I just got a question. How does Jay remember all of the details that he remembers? I can't remember.
He got hit less than you.
That's what it is.
What it is. Yeah.
My favorite Cotton Bowl memory, because I wanted to forget a lot about that game as well. But before the football game, I'm out on the field, and we're all warming up. And, of course, the head football coach, Bear Bryant, he was standing on about the 50-yard line, and I remember hearing so much about him as a young football player coming up to high school and then at Baylor, and here we are getting ready to face him. So I was really excited. I stand and I'm looking at him. He's got this gray, this kind of felt hat on, and he's got this red jacket. Of course, coaches wore suits at that time, and so I'm going to go over and say hello to him. And so I went up to him and I said, Coach Bryant. He turned around and said, yes. I said, I just wanted to, meet you. And I'm number 34. I'm Walter Abercrombie. He goes, oh, boy, I know who you are. And we found out that game that he very well did.
He did know.
I was about to say, he'd been watching tape on you.
That was a harbinger of things to come.
After the game, Coach Bryant came as we were leaving. I ran up to shake his hand. And he looked at me and he said, Jay, you're a fine man.
Wow. How about that? What a great memory.
Which maybe means I probably wasn't as good a football player.
But a good man.
You're a good man.
Yeah. I think about there's an iconic picture of Bear Bryant and Coach Taft, talking before that game. And that's just terrific to think about them, being together on the field. Trivia, I know you guys know this. We only scored 2 points in that game. Yeah. Who scored those 2 points?
Tommy Tabor.
Tommy Tabor with a safety. Yep.
That's right.
And that was it. But it really didn't. Here's the way I remember it. It didn't dampen what you guys had done that year. It would have been great to win the Cotton Bowl, but, man, the memory is nothing but positive about that 1980 season.
It's the first 2 possessions, and afterwards it was kind of dominant, but that's the way games go sometimes. But the first possession, we moved the ball down the field and then actually ran a lead option to the left, and it kind of hit Dennis, and sometimes the ball pops through your hands, and we fumbled that possession, but we were down in the 20. The next possession, we ran a lead option pass, which is where I come down the line and back up. They think we're reading the lead option, and I'm getting ready to throw it, and again, Radar's coming wide open about the 10-yard line, and we don't hinge block on the backside, and I get blindsided, and the ball pops up, and they intercept it. So it's kind of interesting how – we moved the ball well the first 2 possessions, and then after that, it just kind of nothing happened after that. So,
Well, tell everybody, I mentioned this earlier, but you guys on that team, really the 79, 80 teams, you guys have stayed close through the years, haven't you?
We really have. And, this was the 40th anniversary of the 1980 team, and we were planning a big reunion. Last year, we had the reunion of the 1979 team, so some of the guys were sick, so we were going to see some of the same guys 2 years in a row at these reunions, and then COVID came along, and so it canceled our plans to have a reunion this year. But we have stayed close, and one of the things, John, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I get to be in this job, and I get a chance to stay in touch with a lot of guys and try to encourage them to stay involved with Baylor, come back to games, and we try to make it fun for them. We decided to redesign the 1980 championship team ring. And Jay doesn't have it with him, but he got it yesterday. It's a beautiful ring. The ring that we got was fine, but this ring is more of a modern type of championship ring, and so we redesigned it. All the players who wanted one got a chance to order them, and we were able to give them out just in the last few weeks. And it's been pretty cool to see everybody's reaction to the ring. But what's cooler to me is that there are guys who may not have been able to afford the $200 and something or whatever the ring cost, and it wasn't a problem because we had several players on the team to step up without even asking them. Say, you know what? If my teammate needs a ring, I'm going to pay for that ring.
Wow, how about that?
And that's to me kind of is in essence what our team was all about, is having each other's back. And after 40 years, guys still having that feeling to want to step up and help a teammate who maybe can't afford the ring or for whatever reason didn't want to buy it. We want to make sure that person had a ring, and so I'm appreciative to guys like Jay and others on the football team. Doak Field, a guy who, he's mean as a, junkyard dog, but man, when it comes to helping other people, they're there for us. And so I get a chance to see that each year. This happens to be my team. And so to see that was really meaningful to me.
Well, and it's super neat to hear stories like that and to see, doing research with this, I was looking up, all the different players, what they're doing now, and to see, just how successful they have been, whether or not they continued football careers or they didn't. But this 1980 team has very well represented what it means to be a Baylor athlete on and off the field, and long careers in the NFL like you and in your company, Jay. And so that's got to feel good also to look around and see that, kind of what Coach Taft ingrained in all of you has continued through all these years.
And it's not uncommon when you have a championship team made up of people that the same drive that drives them in competition drives them in life and in their faith and their business or in everything they do every day. And so I think that's a case of our team. And it's fun to see the guys. And what's interesting is whether it's been 1 year or been 15 years since you talked to somebody, when you finally get a chance to talk to them, it just all comes back, and it's great to see these guys. And so we're very lucky. And this COVID, when all this happened, we've actually been getting together more often by a Zoom kind of a thing. And so that's been a pretty neat deal this year.
Well, we're sorry that we couldn't have a full-fledged honoring for you guys with the whole team and everything like that. But hopefully this podcast, in kind of walking down memory lane, the green and gold memory lane, provides that for you guys, and hopefully your teammates listen and join us and get to kind of celebrate you that way. So,
and one of the things, and I know we're probably out of time, but that is it's all the players. We had so many fantastic players that played or that were freshmen that year or didn't get to play, but our coaching staff, I mean, these guys became head coaches all over the country. I mean, when you're talking about Corky Nelson and John O'Hara and Grant Taft, I mean, Cotton Davidson, who's just a legend, Duke Christian. I mean, you just go down this team, Bill Hicks, and obviously Coach Lane and
Wade Turner.
Wade Turner. So, just a fantastic, magical group of people, and that believed in each other. And you believe in people because you have a belief. A lot of times you have a belief in a God, and I do, and we do. And the fact is, we do all this because we want to win and we want to be strong, but you have to believe in something bigger and better. And we serve a Lord in Jesus Christ that is the reason that we're here. And it's the fact that we strive to be great in everything that we do through our faith in Him that allows us to be great. And that's one of the great things about this team.
Well, that's a great place to wrap things up.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for representing all your teammates. That 1980 season will live forever in Baylor football history. And thanks to Jay Jeffrey and Walter Abercrombie. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
A lot of fun. For Brooke Bednarz and our two guests, I'm John Morris. Thanks for being with us. We'll be back next week with another edition of the Sick'em Podcast.
You've been listening to the Sick'em Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Online at alansamuelsdcj.com. The Sick'em Podcast has been a production of Baylor Athletics.